All right, kindergarten art friends, it's day 2. Yesterday, we did a lot of practice. I don't know about you, but all that line practice made my hands hurt a little bit. So they're nice and rested today. They're ready to get started. I have completed my line packet. I practiced my lines a bunch so that I can feel really confident about putting those lines into my artwork today. That's what practice helps us do. It helps us feel really good that we have practiced something and we're ready to do it. That's what we're going to do today. So we're going to learn how to use a new material, a marker. I know some of you have certainly used markers before, but we'll talk about them a little bit. And then we're going to create this whole line windsock today. This is a big video. There's a lot of steps to do. So if you need to just work on part today and pause and wait and then go back and finish it on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, you have all week to work on this. So I want you to feel comfortable to work at your own pace to complete this work. So to get started, the first thing you need is the big piece of paper from your folder that you picked up from school on Friday. It has pretty much all the supplies that you need except for the glue bottle. I think that's the only thing that's really missing for today's project. So make sure you have those things handy. This is the first thing we're going to start with. That and our markers. And you're going to want your line sheet because this is going to help us with all our ideas. We're going to practice, or we're going to put these lines we practiced into our artwork. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as we get our markers open, let's talk about how we're going to take care of these markers. We want these markers to last you, not just for the rest of art class, because we'll use them for another project or two. I want these markers to last you through all the other art you might like to make throughout this whole year. These are yours to hang on to. So I want you to be respectful of them so you can continue to make art with them. The most important thing is, one, when I'm finished, I'm going to put them back in my box and I'm going to put them back in my art supply bag because I'm going to keep track of them. But the most important thing is that when I'm finished, I'm putting the cap all the way on. That's not all the way on. Do you see that little gap there? I need to hear the snap when it gets all the way closed. When I leave my lids off, it dries out the marker and then it won't draw anymore. And you're going to want to have all these beautiful colors to use in your artwork. Okay, so remember, when you finish with one, we're going to snap the marker lid on tight, and when we're all finished, we're going to put them away. So these markers are washable. So if we make a little mistake on the table, that's okay. We do get a little messy in art. That's why we talk about how Miss Tess makes a mess. But Miss Tess also cleans up her mess, so you're going to clean up your mess too. So we should be very careful not to go off our paper. But if we do, we're going to remember that that's okay, and we're going to clean it up. You are responsible for cleaning up after your art making process. Let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do, we're going to fill this whole paper with all different types of lines. And we're going to go from one end to the other. We're going to, remember, we practiced making lines into patterns yesterday by repeating them. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make lots of different segments of lines that, as we repeat them, suddenly become patterns. Let's get started with some of those straight lines. You can pick any color that you want. You can also decide to do any line that you want. I'm going to follow along and use my line sheet for reference, but if you decide, you know what, Miss Tess, I don't feel like making a purple straight line, I feel like making a green wavy line, that is totally okay with me. But I'm going to start here with just some purple straight lines to fill my paper. One thing to remember is that you probably will need to work a little bit slower, and that's okay. One of the benefits of this is you can work at your own pace. So if I get too fast, pause the video until you're ready to move on to the next step. So I did about 5 lines here. 5 lines is a good amount. We want to fill this with all different types of patterns. So I'm just going to do little bits, and we're going to keep switching it up. Okay, I'm going to move to my next color. So pick a new color and pick a new line. I'll move to wavy lines. So remember, we're repeating. When we repeat, a line, when we repeat a color, when we repeat a shape or a texture, we'll talk about texture this year too. That helps us to create a pattern. A pattern is when we repeat an element of art. And remember, line is an element of art. Elements of art are the things that we use to make our artwork. And we use lines every time we're drawing. Okay, let's switch it up again. I'm moving on to orange, and I feel like making some curly lines, some of these loop-de-loop-de-loop lines. They look like my crazy curly hair. They look like a really, really dizzying roller coaster. So far I did 5 straight lines, 5 wavy lines. These curly lines are much bigger, so I might not do 5 of them because they take up a lot more space. I think 3 is going to be a good amount. You can see like every few inches on my paper, that's when I'm choosing to move to the next one. 3 down. Let's keep on moving. So I did straight lines here. These are vertical lines. They go up and down, but I can have lines that go back and forth. Those are horizontal lines. I'm going to make horizontal lines. These straight lines are also pretty thin because I use the tip top point of my marker. But if I use the side part of my marker, that will help. That's a bigger surface. It'll help me make a thicker line. So I'm going to make a pattern of some thick lines. When we used our crayons, we kind of made 2 lines and colored them in. But with my marker, I can just use the different surface of my marker, whether it's the tip or the side of the point. And now I have made some thick lines that are horizontal straight lines. I've done 2 types of straight lines, but those 2 different straight lines look very, very different. Okay, how about some spirals? Spirals are those ones that look like snail shells. They go around and around and around. I'm doing one big line of big spirals to fill this pattern of my line paper. Okay, what about some of them? I'm going to choose yellow just for this one because this one is going to be our zigzag one. It's the one that reminds me of lightning bolts. And I'm going to do a couple lines of these. And do you see how I'm doing thick lightning bolts? It's because I'm using the side, not the tip of my marker. Now I have some thick lightning bolts. I think this is looking pretty cool. I'm getting really excited about my work. I hope you're getting excited about your artwork too. It looks like we're about halfway done. How about a new line? One we didn't practice yesterday on yesterday's video. This one was suggested by our friend Otto, and he said we could make a bumpy line, and I was like, that's great. I didn't even think about that yesterday. So we can make a bumpy line. It looks like lots of hills right next to each other. And because it's a pattern, I'm going to do a few more of my bumpy lines too. Again, this is a little bit of a thicker line because I'm not quite using the point. Because I like creating all this variety. Variety is when there's lots of different things happening in my artwork. Maybe the next one I'll do a thinner line again by using the tip top point of my marker. Okay, for this one, how about a dashed line? It's like a straight line, but we break it up. So it's lots of little lines. And I'm trying to make this one a little thinner, so I'm using the tip-top point of my marker. I'm going to make a couple dashed lines. And because they're thinner, I'm going to make closer to like 5 of them. It looks like when I'm doing the lines with the thicker part of my marker, I'm doing about like 3 of them for my patterns. But when I'm doing a thinner line, I'm doing more like 5 for my patterns. I'm really filling up this paper. We're almost finished with this first section of today's work. After this, we'll start to put this together to make the windsock. So after we finish this part, maybe this is a stopping point for you today. If your hand is tired and you need a rest. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, you could build your windsock. Okay, next one. How about some crisscrosses? The crisscrosses are the ones that look like X's and little T's. Otto's bumpy line kind of looks like upside down U's all put together. There's lots of lines that we use when we're making our letters. So when we look at our lines, I bet we see lots of letters in the lines that we're making here. Now maybe when you do some crisscross lines, maybe you're going to do all X's or all little T's. Maybe you're going to do a crisscross pattern that looks like a plaid shirt pattern. I think that one looks good. Okay. I think maybe I have room for 2 more line styles. 2 more line styles. I haven't done any dotted lines yet. Well, maybe I'll do some dotted lines. Now when I'm doing my dotted lines, I don't want to do teeny tiny ones. That will take a long time. I want to make a nice big thick dotted line. I want to be able to see my dotted line if I'm a little further away from my windsock. I don't want to have to necessarily get up super duper close to my windsock to see my dotted lines. I like big fat polka dotted lines. So those are the ones I'm making. And I'm actually making those by making small little circles. I can see shapes inside my lines too. I think I'll finish this line and I'll do one more, and then we'll do one last line to finish out this section of the project. Okay, last color. I'm feeling like some more blue. For this one, I'm going to make diagonal lines. Diagonal lines are another type of straight lines, but they go from corner to corner across the paper. And I can also change directions of my diagonal lines. I like making this pattern by changing my diagonal lines. But remember, you can choose some of your own line patterns. You don't have to follow along just like Miss Tess did. We all get to make some of our own artistic decisions always in our artwork, even if we're learning something new with Miss Tess. Okay, that's done. Did you hear what I did every time I finished with a marker? I clicked that cap. And now we're done with the markers for today. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all my markers go right back into my box and that I close my box up. I don't want to lose any of my colors, so I have all my color choices. And I don't want any of my markers to dry out, so I can keep using them for lots and lots of art. All right, you're going to need all the rest of the supplies that were in that envelope now. We are going to be putting everything together and turning it into like a windsock. So it's going to be something you're going to hang. This is three-dimensional art. It's not a flat piece of paper or flat painting. We're making something three-dimensional. That means there's art on all sides of it. We can walk around the whole thing. It's got 3 dimensions. So let's talk about the supplies that you have. You have some fun glittery tape. This is a special kind of tape. It's just going to help us close it up, and I thought it looked fun. And I didn't know how to send a whole roll home. And this has just a peely sticky back. It's kind of like a sticker tape. So you have this. It's kind of hard to get the parts off. You might need a grown-up to do this, but this is the very last step. You have a string. We're going to talk about how to tie a knot. We're going to give it a try on our own to tie a knot through the holes at the top of our paper. If that's too tricky, there's always an adult around that I bet somebody can help you, but I want you to give it a try yourself. So you have your string. This is the string you're going to use to hang it somewhere in your house. You have 4 pieces of tissue paper. These are going to be fun because they'll blow in the wind. If you end up putting it outside, it'll blow in the wind. So we have some tissue paper. All right, so we have the tissue paper. I got interrupted for a minute, but I'm back. Then I also gave you some construction paper. We are going to make lines with our construction paper too. We are going to make some spirals with our construction paper, and we're going to make some zigzags. And so that's going to add even more lines, but in a different way, onto our really cool windsock that we're going to hang up. So let's do these together first. I want you to pick out 2 colors, and we'll do zigzags with 2 of the colors. So these 2 are on top, so I'm going to do these 2. Okay, so I'm just going to do 1 at a time, and since we're going to do 2, that means we get to practice twice. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold this. We're just going to fold it over just a little bit, maybe a couple fingertips. Right, that's about an inch. That's a pretty good inch. Okay, so I folded it. Now I'm going to fold it backwards. I'm going to try and make it as even as I can. But if it's not a big deal. It'll just be a different type of zigzag. So I'm just folding it back and forth. Can you see what I'm doing? Do you see how it's starting to make our zigzag? Hey. Folding my paper over and back. And each time I press hard. When I press hard, it helps to make the fold. And that's going to keep it looking like a zigzag if I press it hard. So if we were in the art room and you were having a hard time, I might help you by doing it with you, where we would press together and we would fold it together. So maybe there's an adult who can help you to get started, but it's your work, so they can't do all your work. But an adult can always help you get started, for sure. Okay, I finished that whole one. It looks like a little accordion. Reet, 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 reet. Now, when I hold it up, I have a zigzag paper. Cool, huh? Let's make a second one. It'll give us even more time to practice. So last time, if an adult helped you a little bit, see if you can do this one all on your own. Fold it like 1 inch down, and then I flip it over to the other side. And each time I'm pressing with my fingers, smushing it to make a little fold. Smushy, smushy. Going back and forth as I go. And what do you do if I'm going too fast? Pause the video. Just go back and forth and smush it right on the line as you're folding. So you can see I have it's a little long. That's not quite a full fold. That's okay, because I'm gonna have to glue this on my windsock. All right, 2 zigzag line papers. I'm gonna set these off to the side. I'm gonna set them next to my tissue paper. We're not gonna do anything with the tissue paper. We're just gonna let it blow in the wind like a jellyfish. So we're not gonna do anything with that. So I set my zigzags with that one. Now for these two, we're gonna turn these into spirals. And it's kind of just gonna spiral along the bottom. But in order to make a spiral was a line that curls in on itself. So we're just rolling this up. You see what I'm doing? Rolling it up. I'm gonna roll it between my hands a little bit, because if I just rolled it once, it might not stay in a good spiral. So I'm gonna roll it to shape my paper how I want it. Now, I'm gonna undo it a little bit. Look at that spiral. This is gonna look cool when I hang it from my windsock too. Whoop, 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 whoop. I think this is fun. All right, one more the same way. Rolling it, rolling it, rolling it. Now, I'm gonna kind of roll it back and forth. I'm smushing the paper a little bit to make it hang. Now I'm pulling it. Okay, 1 spiral, 2 spirals to go with my zigzags. I'm ready to put it all together. All right, not gonna lie to you, this is probably the trickiest part of this, especially if you are someone still learning how to tie your shoe. If you know how to tie your shoe, it might be a little bit easier for you. But I want you to at least give it a try. And if you give it a try and it's too tricky, that's okay. This would be a great adult helper part. If we were in the art room, this would be an adult helper part where I'd make you try twice. If it was still too tricky, I'd do it for you. So the 2 holes at the top, we're gonna tie our string through. So I want you to watch first and then give it a try yourself. So I'm gonna put my string through my hole and bring it back here. So I have 2 ends of my string. Okay, just like 2 shoelaces. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to cross them over each other, and the little tail end is gonna push up through the little hole, and then I'm gonna pull my tail end. If I pull too tight, it's gonna tear my paper. Don't pull too tight. It just is a gentle knot. And then you do it again. Your tail end goes over, your tail end tucks under, and pull the tail end through the loop. Okay, now I have a knot. Now I'm going to do it with the other tail end on this side. Put it through my paper. I have my two pieces like I'm tying my shoe. My tail end crosses over. My tail end goes under and pops in the hole, and I pull it through. And I do the same thing one more time. I do it twice because just doing it once might still come undone. It's like doing a double knot on your shoe when you want your shoe to stay on. We want this to stay on. So again, tail end goes over, goes under, pops up through the hole, the loop, and I pull it through. Not too tight, just gentle. Okay, so now my 2 ends are tied to the top of my paper. Yay! All right, ready to use some glue? I am. All right, let me get this zoomed back out here. We'll flip it over because we are gluing on the back side. Okay, our beautiful artwork's on the other side. We don't want to cover that up with any of our stuff. I need my bottle of glue. My lid should have been closed. I don't want it to dry out, and I'm going to twist it open to open it up. I have my spiral and zigzag papers. I have 4 tissue papers that I'm going to be gluing, and I'm going to go every other one. Every other one is going to be a construction paper, tissue paper, construction paper, tissue paper. It does not matter what order you put them in. Just do every other one, tissue paper, construction paper. That way it won't be out of balance. I don't want it to lean to one side. And then you'll have the tissue paper sides flowing through. I'm going to start with my spiral. I want my loopy spiral end to stick out, so I'm going to actually glue it on this side where my curves are. So we'll glue like right there. So what I'm going to do is put a little X of glue on the end, and then I'm going to turn it over. Look, I already got a little glue on my hand. That's okay. And press it down gently. I don't want it to squirt out too much, but I want a good amount, so that way it's going to glue on there well. So if I do put it outside and it's a windy day, it's not going to blow away. I will not need as much for my tissue paper. My tissue paper is really see-through, so I'm just going to put a little circle of tissue paper of glue and press it down. If I put too much, it's going to come through this tissue paper and it's going to make a gloopy gloppy mess. So just a little bit. Okay, so construction paper, tissue paper. It's like a pattern. It's time for construction paper. Everything's a pattern. Okay, my X. Oh, I wasn't on camera. I made my X. You can see I'm putting the little spaces in between because I want it to go all the way across my paper. So 8 works pretty well. That's why I gave you 8, but they shouldn't be touching. They should have a little gap in between. Okay, construction paper, tissue paper, construction paper. What's next? Tissue paper. Okay, and it worked well when I put a little circle, not too much. Pat it gently. Construction paper, tissue paper, construction paper, tissue paper, construction paper, X. Glue it down. Press, press, press. Make sure it sticks. Okay. After construction paper, I know the pattern by now. It is time for tissue paper. Little circle on the paper. Pat it down gently so I don't make a gloopy gloppy mess of tearing through. And construction paper, I have another spiral and I want it to spiral out. So I'm going to put the X there. It looks like a lizard tongue, a frog tongue. Okay. Making a lot of sound effects today. Must be the end of the week. At least for me right now as I'm working on this. Alright, I put a little glue, tissue paper, pat it gently. That part's done. Before you close it up and put the tape on it, which is probably adult help, I should close my glue nice and tight and set it safely off to the side. And I probably want to sit and let my glue dry a little bit, because when I start to turn and fold this, I don't want stuff to start sliding out or to get messy. So I'm going to take a break. for about 10 minutes or so and make sure this is dry. Okay, I have tied my string, glued my papers and stuff to the bottom. I'm ready to close this up to make it look like a windsock. I mean, this looks pretty cool too. That would be like a wall hanging, but we're making a windsock. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it around on itself like this. And then we're gonna put our special glitter tape. You have 2 or 3 pieces, so you use, if you need 2 or 3, but you definitely want one kind of at the top and the bottom. So this is where an adult is gonna be helpful. The tape that I gave you has a sticky back that should peel off. And then right towards the top, and I'm going to press it around to help it stick. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited! And my last piece, ready to see. Da, 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 da. Look at my hanging windsock. So I can set this out, I can hang this outside on my porch, I could hang it in my room for fun. Find somewhere that you want to hang this in your house, that you can look at it every day. And look at all the beautiful lines that we practiced and learned about, and how we made some bright, colorful, fun, 3-dimensional artwork with those lines. I love the way that my spirals and zigzags are here, and my tissue paper is going to flow in the wind, and it's going to look beautiful. So, in order to let me know that you made this, I just want to see a picture of it hanging somewhere. And that's what you're going to send into Art Sonia. Sound good? I cannot wait to see your beautiful masterpiece line windsocks. So send them in, have some fun. I can't wait to see what you finish. If you have any questions, send me a message. I'm happy to help. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.